Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. I am your host, Tom Downey, here with one of my favorite segments. It's my mailbag here, questions coming in from our Cowboys Report YouTube channel and my own Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. We'll start things off here with a question from the Bitter Beard Face, one of my actual personal favorite followers. Don't tell anyone else though. He asks, safe to see you'll never see David Irving suit up again for the Cowboys. I don't know. I think there's a strong possibility there. I don't know if it's the most likely outcome. I think there is a chance it comes back in the playoffs. I do feel personally misled by Jerry Jones's comments of late. So I'm not going to totally rule it out. I don't think it's safe to say, but I think there's a real chance. And the Cowboys, again, they don't think David Irving loves football. He's not supposed to play in the last 2 regular season games. I'm sure the Cowboys desperately want him out there for a playoff run. So he could still return, but in reality, look, I think this is his last year. I don't think you're going to see David Irving come back to the Cowboys next year. And there is a real chance here that this is it for David Irving. That we've seen him in the last time in a Cowboys jersey, like I think is the case for Terrence Williams. So I would love to find a way to get David Irving back on the field. I want the talent out there, but it's just becoming a headache. Week in and week out, it's always something with David Irving. There's always something else going on. And look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, so y'all don't get mad at me. I do feel bad for the guy. But at a certain point, he's got to actually be able to be on the field. He's not even showing up to the practices for the most part. That's an issue there. So let me know what you think the Cowboys should do with David Irving. Type K for keep, type D for dump. At the end of the year, say bye-bye. Go invest in a very, very good defensive line draft class this draft season. All right, from Michael Ramos saying, was the bigger snub for the Pro Bowl LVE or Jaylon Smith? Now, I'll preface this by saying there is no wrong answer. Both these guys had Pro Bowl caliber years. The issue is they're going up against the likes of Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly, who have also played out of their minds so far this year. So for the comparison here between LVE and Jaylon, they've almost done a little bit different things. You know, Jaylon's done a better job of blitzing at times and getting in the backfield. Leighton Vander Esch has done a better job in coverage, I think, with some very nice interceptions as well. There is no wrong answer. I will go with Leighton Vander Esch because he's done it, by the way, in less snaps. He has been an absolutely fantastic player for the Cowboys, has instantly become an impact player for this team. Again, there is no wrong answer, but let me know. Who do you think was the Cowboys' biggest Pro Bowl snub? I'll go with Vander Esch, but or maybe a Mark Cooper if you want to go that route, but between the two linebackers there, I'll go with Vander Esch. But in the end, very, very impressive what those two guys have done so far this season. All right, folks, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, and they're letting me play Santa Tom this holiday season. I'm hooking you guys up with a free Cowboys jersey. Here's how you can get one. Sign up and deposit at chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Cowboys120, then DM us on Twitter at chatsports. Oh, by the way, once you use that promo code, you'll get a 120% deposit bonus. So put down $50. BetDSI will give you an extra $60 for free to bet with, and we'll get you guys hooked up with a Cowboys jersey once you DM us on Twitter at chatsports. Time now for the Scott Linehan section of today's mailbag. Not that that's any surprise at all. Ivan says it's so obvious, but do you know why, or the reasons why, that they haven't fired Linehan yet? Well, in reality, loyalty is the big reason here. Jason Garrett is intensely loyal to Scott Linehan. Remember, Linehan hired Jason Garrett as his first coaching job as the Dolphins quarterback coach. And frankly, look, we're in week 16. We are late in the year. I am for firing Linehan, but changes at this time of the season typically don't make the most sense. So I think that Garrett is loyal to Linehan, doesn't want more changes. If and or when the Cowboys collapse down the stretch and have a bad showing in the playoffs and the offense costs the Cowboys a win, then I think you might see some changes. Which brings us to our next question here from Caleb saying, if Dallas does go to the playoffs, do we still fire Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan? Well, if there's no Super Bowl, I think you got to fire Linehan. I think he needs to go, and Eileen right now, I think he does end up getting fired. I think the noise has just been too much, and the on-field results have been very poor overall. Garrett, however, might still return. Now, it was and still is a playoffs or bust season for Jason Garrett. So I think from that perspective, if the Cowboys make the postseason, as long as they don't get blown out or it goes really, really badly, they don't back into the playoffs either, I think that making the playoffs does save Jason Garrett's job. Linehan, however, I think you're going to see him on the outs after this season ends, and I certainly hope that ends up being the case because he is just not a good offensive coordinator. All right, some more questions here. This one from First Last, and I think he's serious here. It says, does Linehan call poor plays when a player calls him out on his play calling on purpose? I've made this joke many a time that Linehan's calling bad plays on purpose here, but here's the thing. It's Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what can equally be explained away by stupidity. Linehan's just not a good coordinator. That's, I think, a far more reasonable outcome than that he's tanking his own stock to get back at a player. I don't think that's the case there. So in reality, I just think Linehan's a very, very bad offensive coordinator. So I'll ask you, and I'm sure I know the answers here. Do you want Linehan fired? One of my favorite questions because it's the same answer week in, week out. He's got to go. FS, fire Scott. Let's bring in somebody else. And that brings us to our question here from Alyssa, who asks, do you think the Cowboys will fire Scott Linehan? And if they do, who would be the top offensive coordinator candidates? Now, I was going to do 5. I ended up getting to 10 just because that's how things worked out. So 10 guys to at least watch for, and I'm sure others will emerge as well. John D. Flippo, who is the fired Vikings offensive coordinator. How about Todd Monken, actually might be top candidate right now, the Bucs OC, who is probably going to be out of a job once Dirk Cutter gets fired. Alex Van Pelt, Aaron Rodgers loves him. He's now the Bengals quarterbacks coach. How about Gary Kubiak, if he could come back out of retirement, which he's shown some interest in doing? If you want an internal promotion, it'd probably be Doug Nussmeier, who does have some OC experience. And then some other names with varying degrees of likelihood or desire. Greg Roman, I think, could be a decent fit with Dak's mobility, but I think he could do a little bit better. I know some of you guys like Todd Haley. I'm not the world's biggest fan. By the way, all of a sudden, Freddie Kitchens comes in as the OC, and the offense is better. Maybe some blame there for Todd Haley. Zach Taylor, if you want the Rams route, he's going to draw some head coaching interest. His younger brother, Press Taylor, probably a bit early. And then I saw this many a time in the comments section about Mike Kafka. Y'all don't want to hear this and you won't like it, but Mike Kafka is just a rich man's Kellen Moore. Everything you guys hate about Kellen Moore, he wasn't a good quarterback, also applies to Mike Kafka. The difference is Kafka's learning from better coaches, i.e. Andy Reid, and, maybe he was a better draft pick as well, but I'd say wait a little bit on Mike Kafka. He's a quarterback's coach, and the OC doesn't even call the plays there. So who do you want as the next Cowboys OC? Let me know in the comments section. Just please, please don't make it Scott Linehan. I am of the mindset of ABL, anyone but Linehan. If you give me somebody else, I will almost be happy just by default. All right, from the N on Twitter asks, is Richard going to get the DC job or leave? I think we need to adjust our mindset here. I think everyone's of the approach of, if he doesn't get the DC promotion, he's gone. Kris Richard's already your de facto DC. For months now, we've listed him as the DC, not the DB's coach. He's the one calling the plays. He's the DC in everything but title, and that'll come this offseason. And by the way, let's give Jerry Jones some credit here. He has always been willing to pony up for his assistant coaches if he likes them. He did it, by the way, with Jason Garrett when he almost took other NFL head coaching jobs. So as long as Richard doesn't get a head coaching job, which I think is a real possibility, I think he stays in Dallas. And in the end, that's the best case there for the Cowboys. All right, folks, do you want to be featured on the show? A lot of our mailbag questions came from users of our Cowboys Report YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. Plus, we've got news and rumors, highlights, and, of course, some of that special fan-led content. So head over youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report to subscribe today. Again, folks, that is youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. We'll take you now back to the mailbag with some more questions here. Do It Like 93 says, will the Cowboys trade one of their backup quarterbacks with a later round pick to get a solid backup? It's not that simple, right? I don't think it's not like Madden. You can't just package late round pick and a backup quarterback and get a better quarterback. And I don't think Cooper Rush or Mike White have much trade value. Now, in general, I am on board with bringing in a veteran backup guy. I don't think you're going to see them be able to package Cooper Rush and, let's say, a 6th round pick to get a good backup. I just don't think teams are going to be interested by that. So maybe they go sign a veteran. I just don't think a trade there is a likely outcome. We'll stick with the quarterback theme here when it comes to my mailbag from, I think it's pronounced Tony. That's how it's right. Tony Renz Gaming says, will Jerry draft Will Grier if Dak doesn't step up and lead the team the way it needs to be led? Here's my first question is, we sure that Dak hasn't been leading the team the right way? Like, leadership is not the thing to point out with Dak Prescott. And frankly, look, the Cowboys are not going to draft a quarterback early. That is not going to happen. They're not going to invest a high pick in a quarterback when they still believe in Dak Prescott, who, by the way, is one of the best values out there among quarterbacks. And it's a bad quarterback class. Will GRIER even be there? That actually means two things. I just realized that. Will GRIER and then Will GRIER. I get it. That's funny. All right, anyway. GRIER, by the way, is not better than Dak Prescott right now. So I don't see any scenario in which the Cowboys decide, you know what, we're going to take Will GRIER and then figure out something else to do with Dak Prescott. If you're going to adjust the quarterback class or your quarterback position, maybe look ahead more towards the 2020 season, which I think makes a little bit more sense if that's the route the Cowboys actually want to go. Which, by the way, brings us to our next question from Randy Scott 98. Says, are the Cowboys ruling out an upgraded quarterback in 2020? Publicly, that's what they've been saying. I will remain at least slightly unconvinced because you don't have to. Yes, you can extend Dak this offseason, and that's what they publicly said they plan to do, but you don't need to rush into it. Yeah, you have to worry about the franchise tag down the road, but if you're Dak Prescott and his agent, I don't think you're going to settle for a hometown discount. I think he's going to demand a lot of money. In that case, don't commit yourself when you don't have to yet. He's got a super cheap contract next year. Then you can worry about paying Dak Prescott big money. So I'll ask you, is Dak the franchise quarterback? I still kind of lean a little bit more towards yes than no, but it's certainly not set in stone, and I'll make this point again. I would so much like to see Dak Prescott without Scott Linehan and or Jason Garrett. I think he would have a much better time and more success with a more competent quarterback, or coach, excuse me. More quarterback questions here from Max Denton asking about Jameis Winston. Let's say the Bucs cut him loose, and the Cowboys go after him as a backup if he doesn't get starter money. I mean, in a bubble, I like the idea, but I don't think it's a very plausible outcome. For starters, the Bucs might just keep Jameis Winston. Next up, Winston wants to start. So I don't see him taking backup money in Dallas, right? He'd go somewhere like Jacksonville. And if you're Jacksonville and Winston comes available, wouldn't you throw $20 million at him, right? Because what are your other options? So I have a tough time seeing Winston come over. I am open to a backup and a more veteran backup, but I don't think Jameis Winston is the answer there to that question. All right, folks, if you don't know what to add to your holiday wish list this season, how about a Mizzen and Main shirt? It is the best damn dress shirt out there. Comfortable.af is the site, and that URL does check out. They are indeed comfortable as F, so go check them out. Not just dress shirts, by the way, some awesome-looking sweaters as well. Comfortable.af is the site. You are not going to find a better shirt, dress or otherwise, than a Mizzen and Main one. All right, next up from Ethan Tyra says the Cowboys wanted to trade back into the first round. What trade options could be used? Well, it's tough. Let's say you're drafting around number 55 where the Cowboys are currently projected. You're looking at having to tack on your second-round pick and an early third, which you don't have because you're drafting in the mid to late third. So don't bank on a first-round trade unless you want to give up a high future pick and your second this year and or a player. So I don't think with no first-round pick it makes sense for the Cowboys to move up and sacrifice your depth because in reality, I don't think you're one player away in terms of one extra draft pick away. Speaking of the draft here, Sloan asks, with the development of Dalton Schultz over the last 4 games and the way he played at Stanford, does that bump tight end down the pecking order? The Cowboys have made it pretty clear they want more tight end help. Now, if they re-sign Jefferson, maybe they kind of roll with what they have. But I do think you'll see the Cowboys look at tight end early in the draft and or in free agency. They've been very open about their desire, and they're willing to not even throw out smoke screens in that regard. They'll just say it, and then they'll make it happen like Leighton Vander Esch, like Amari Cooper. They're open for the most part with their desire about what positions they want to add. Now, Schultz and Jarwin have really stepped their game up. I'd still argue that DT remains the more underrated need for the Cowboys. David Irving's probably going to be gone. Malik Collins will be a free agent after next year. So I'd focus on DT early in a loaded class. But I think in the end, maybe it does make a little bit more sense here for the Cowboys to focus on getting a different tight end if you don't believe in Dalton Schultz, if you don't really believe in Blake Jarwin fully. By the way, I think that Rico Gathers, because he has not played all that much as of late, is continuing to trend here to not being the go-to guy for the Dallas Cowboys. They don't seem to like him all that much. So Schultz improving is a big, big factor there. Maybe it does knock down the tight end need, but I still think they're going to look early, at least consider it, and look at a tight end early in this NFL draft in 2019. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.